It all began with a mistake. A mix-up so small it might have passed unnoticed if not for what came next. Jake Turner, a mechanic with calloused hands and no patience for fine dining, sat at the wrong table in a polished restaurant far outside his usual world. He had a crumpled piece of paper with Table 7 scrawled across it, and when he approached and saw a beautiful woman in a pastel blue dress waiting there, he assumed awkwardly that this was where he belonged. Charlotte Whitmore, graceful even in the sleek wheelchair that had become part of her life, looked up at him with sea-blue eyes touched by curiosity and something gentler, loneliness. "You're at the wrong table," she told him softly, her voice calm. Then, after a pause, she asked if he might stay anyway. Her tone was hesitant, hopeful, and unexpectedly brave. Jake hesitated too, caught between embarrassment and an instinct he didn't quite understand. He was dressed in a wrinkled shirt and worn boots, a man not used to linen napkins or soft music, but something in her expression made him sit. And just like that, two strangers who weren't supposed to meet began a conversation that neither would forget. They talked not about what one might expect, but about grilled cheese sandwiches and thunderstorms, old rock bands, vintage cameras, and awkwardly tiny forks. Charlotte didn't mention who she was. CEO's daughter whispered about in boardrooms and glossy magazines, and Jake never asked about the wheelchair. It was just them, free for once of what usually defined them. Neither of them knew that Charlotte had signed up for a no-photo, anonymous dating app hoping to meet someone who saw her, not her name, not her disability. She had expected a man named Daniel to meet her at Table 7. Jake, meanwhile, had no clue his best friend had used his name to set up a fake profile as a joke and booked the same table for a free dinner voucher he'd won. So Jake had shown up expecting a quiet meal and maybe some small talk, never guessing the world was about to shift. 25 minutes later, it did. The real Daniel arrived, tall, smug, expensive, and immediately recoiled at the sight of Charlotte's wheelchair. His face twisted in disgust and he scoffed, making an ugly comment that stopped the entire restaurant in its tracks. Charlotte stiffened, her knuckles whitening around her glass, but Jake stood slowly, calmly, and stepped between them. "I'm the one sitting with her," he said simply. "Who are you?" Daniel sneered, called himself her date. Jake replied, quiet but firm, "Not anymore." The man left in a storm of awkward silence, and when Jake turned back to Charlotte and gently asked if she was okay, she could only nod, stunned by the fact that he had stepped in without hesitation. "You didn't have to do that," she murmured. "Yeah," he said softly. "I did." He offered to leave with her, to escape the tension and the whispering stares, and she agreed. They walked, he pacing, she wheeling beside him until they found a quiet city park aglow with soft golden lamplight. There, under the trees, Jake apologized for ruining her night, but Charlotte surprised him by saying she was glad he had come. When he offered grilled cheese from a nearby food truck as a second attempt at dinner, she said yes without hesitation. They sat on a park bench, eating steaming sandwiches and sipping tomato soup. Jake told her how he'd been fixing cars since high school, raising his little sister after their father died, and how proud he was that she had made it to college. Charlotte listened, then shared her own story, how a rainy night and a spinning car had crushed her spine and changed her life. She told him that this was her first date since, and she'd hoped hiding her identity might let someone see her for once, not the chair. Jake met her eyes and told her quietly, "I saw you." She blinked in surprise, and he explained. She was wearing a blue dress, talking about olives, lit by restaurant candles. That's what he saw. When she spilled juice on her lap, flustered, Jake pulled out a worn handkerchief and gently wiped her hands, steady and calm, without a trace of pity. "I wiped your hand because it's beautiful," he said, and something inside her cracked, not from sadness but from being truly seen. They sat there quietly, finishing their food, the world hushed around them. Later, as they parted, Jake said he was glad he'd sat at the wrong table. Charlotte smiled, her eyes shimmering. "So am I." It should have ended there, but fate had other ideas. They kept running into each other. At the corner diner with bad coffee and greasy eggs, the movie theater with reels instead of digital, the food cart in the park where the hot dog guy knew Jake's name. Charlotte would sometimes pretend it was coincidence, though she later admitted to walking by his garage just to see if he was around. Jake never asked about the chair, never made it a topic. What he did ask was about her favorite smell, her secrets, her beliefs, and when she answered, he listened, really listened. One rainy afternoon, Charlotte surprised him with lunch at the garage. He was under a car, soaked to the bone, singing to himself. When she handed him grilled cheese sandwiches, he grinned. "You brought food. I may love you," he joked. She smiled, teasing back. As they sat beneath the tin awning, eating with soggy napkins, Jake confessed that he once dreamed of being an artist. He used to draw everything until life got in the way. Money was tight. His mom worked nights and dreams faded under responsibility. Charlotte didn't speak right away. Then she opened her bag, pulled out a sketchbook, and flipped to a drawing. Jake, crouched under a car, rain pouring around him, captured in lines and shadows. "I had to draw you," she said. "You looked like yourself." Jake stared, stunned. "No one's ever drawn me before." She blushed but shrugged. "I wanted you to see how I see you." That night, Charlotte returned home with the sketchbook still in her bag and her heart full. When she reached inside later, she found a folded note Jake had tucked between the pages. His handwriting was rough, uneven, but real. It read, "I'd choose your smile over 1,000 steps." Charlotte sat frozen, then cried. Not from sadness, but from the raw, aching beauty of being seen, chosen, valued. But the world didn't stay quiet. A tabloid photo surfaced, grainy, invasive, and cruel. It showed her and Jake outside his garage, laughing, his hand on her wheelchair. The headline screamed, "Billionaire's daughter slumming." Love or lust for fortune? Charlotte stared at the screen, heart sinking. They'd turned something real into a joke, a scandal. For a moment, all the walls she'd torn down came rushing back. But Jake, when he found out, wasn't shaken. He didn't back away or run. He showed up. He looked her in the eye and told her he didn't care what the world thought. He wasn't with her for headlines or pity or some twisted curiosity. He liked her. All of her. The girl who loved thunderstorms, who spilled juice, who sketched him in the rain. In time, the noise faded. The photos became yesterday's gossip, replaced by newer scandals. But Jake and Charlotte kept meeting, kept choosing each other, at greasy diners and under dripping awnings, in sketchbooks and quiet benches. It had started with a mistake, yes, but maybe, just maybe, it had never really been a mistake at all. Charlotte Whitmore hadn't seen the flash that started it all. She hadn't noticed the figure lurking in the alley behind the cafe, hadn't thought twice about the easy laughter or the warmth in Jake's eyes that evening. But now it was everywhere. On news sites, gossip blogs whispered in the corners of coffee shops where the elite sipped their morning arrogance. By the time she entered her father's office, the scandal had already taken on a life of its own. The air in the room was icy despite the glow of polished oak and the soft hum of the fireplace. William Whitmore didn't look up when she entered. His attention was fixed on a tabloid spread across his desk. "Close the door," he said, voice cold and clipped. Charlotte obeyed, the click of the latch louder than she intended. Her father finally lifted the paper, holding it between them like evidence in a trial. "Explain this." Charlotte sat straighter, refusing to fidget. "There's nothing to explain," she said evenly. "I was spending time with someone I care about." "Someone?" William repeated, his tone sharp as glass. "You mean the mechanic? The one with no lineage, no education, no future. A man who sees you as a paycheck wrapped in silk." Her jaw tightened. "Jake isn't like that." "You think he's with you because of your charm?" William barked, rising from his chair. "You're the Whitmore heiress and my only child, the face of everything I've built. And you've turned yourself into a punchline." "He didn't ask for this attention," she said quietly. "He doesn't have to ask," her father snapped. "Men like him take. That's what they do." Charlotte's fingers gripped the arms of her chair. "You don't know him. I know enough." His tone darkened. "I had him investigated." The words hit her like a slap. "You what?" "I know his debts, his income, his work history," he said, unbothered by her disbelief. "He doesn't even have a proper business license in his own name. He's nothing." "You can't build a future with nothing." Her voice wavered but didn't break. "I didn't realize my future had to go through your approval first, and like a merger proposal." William's expression hardened into the same impassive mask he wore at board meetings. "You want love? Then find someone who understands your world. Someone who belongs." Charlotte didn't answer. She stood, turned, and left the room without another word. That evening, she texted Jake and asked to meet at the diner they loved, the one with flickering neon signs and chipped ceramic mugs that somehow made the coffee taste better. She got there early, trying to steady her hands. When Jake walked in, wiping his palms on his jeans, his smile faltered at the sight of her expression. "Everything okay?" he asked. She forced a small smile. "Yeah, just a long day." They ordered their usual eggs and toast for him, tea with lemon for her. The silence stretched between them like fog. "You're quieter than usual," he said gently. Charlotte stirred her tea, staring at the reflection in the cup. "My father found out." Jake leaned back, exhaling. "And I'm guessing he's not thrilled." She tried to sound casual, failed. "Maybe we should cool things down for a bit, just until things calm down." His brow furrowed. "Cool things down? Did I do something wrong?" "No," she said too quickly. "It's just complicated." He watched her carefully, reading every tremor in her voice. "I don't need your father's approval," he said softly. "Or his money. I don't care about being part of his empire. I just need to know you're still you." She said nothing. He leaned forward, voice low but steady. "Charlotte, I don't care if the world thinks I'm a nobody. I just need to know the woman sitting across from me is still the one who laughed at my terrible jokes and sketched me like I was worth remembering." Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't speak. Her silence answered for her. Jake stood, leaving a few bills on the table. "I don't need a title," he said, voice almost breaking. "I just need you to still be you." Then he turned and walked out into the night. She didn't stop him. Hours later, the sky broke open with rain. Over the next week, Jake knew he was being watched. It started subtly. Unfamiliar cars parked too long near his garage, strangers asking for service and leaving without one, a man in a suit standing across the street pretending to check his phone. Then one night, a sleek black sedan stopped outside after closing. A man stepped out, small-framed but with authority that filled the air. "I represent Mr. Whitmore," he said smoothly. Jake crossed his arms. "Of course you do. You've become an inconvenience," the man continued. "Let me be direct and walk away. No more dinners, no calls, no contact with Miss Whitmore." Jake's jaw tightened. "Or what?" The man smiled faintly. "Your business license, your loan, your suppliers. Things can change." He set a business card on the workbench and turned toward the door. "Be smart, Mr. Turner." When the taillights vanished, Jake was still standing in the dark, trembling with rage and heartbreak. He looked at his phone, one missed call from Charlotte. He couldn't bring himself to call back. Days passed. Charlotte's calls filled his voicemail until there was no space left. "Are you okay? Please talk to me." "Jake, I'm sorry." Silence followed each one. Then one night she found an envelope in her mailbox. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper with his handwriting. "I can't walk beside you, Charlotte, but I'll always be behind you like a shadow keeping you upright. This isn't goodbye. It's me keeping you safe." She read the note again and again until the words blurred. Her chest constricted. She screamed into the empty apartment, rage and grief mixing like storm water. "Why are you doing this?" The silence didn't answer. She wheeled into the hallway, shouting his name, shouting into nothing. Then she returned inside, slammed the door, and for the first time since the accident let herself completely fall apart. Rain lashed against the windows as she left her building hours later. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. The city was a blur of wet light and wind. Her arms burned from the effort of pushing her wheelchair down slick sidewalks, but she didn't stop. She reached the old pedestrian bridge, the one she used to visit as a child with her mother. They'd feed ducks there, watch boats drift below. Her mother once told her, "You'll walk across this bridge one day on your own." That dream had died the night of the accident. Now all she wanted was to cross it one more time, alone. The rain poured harder. Halfway across, one wheel caught between the wooden planks. "Come on," she muttered, struggling to free it. The harder she pulled, the tighter it stuck. Then, faint through the storm, came headlights. A delivery truck barreled toward her, too fast, too close. "Stop!" she screamed, waving her arms, but the driver couldn't see her. The bridge was narrow, visibility near zero. Panic clamped her lungs, and then a shout through the downpour. "Charlotte!" A figure sprinted out of the darkness. "Jake!" He raced toward her, slipping on the wet boards, catching himself, never slowing. Charlotte's breath caught. "Jake!" In one motion, he reached her, grabbed the handles of her chair, and yanked. The wheel came free with a snap. He spun her to the side just as the truck roared past, horn blaring, tires skidding dangerously close. They crashed to the walkway, his body shielding hers. For a long moment, there was nothing but the sound of rain and the frantic rhythm of their hearts. Charlotte clutched at him, tears mixing with rain. "I thought you were gone," she whispered. He cupped her face, his eyes raw with emotion. "I tried to be. I thought staying away would protect you." "I don't need protection," she said. "I need you." He closed his eyes, his forehead resting against hers. "I couldn't stop thinking about you," he breathed. "Every second." "Then don't leave again," she whispered. "I won't." And there, beneath the storm, they kissed. A kiss that wasn't just love, but survival. The world melted into the sound of rain, and for the first time in weeks, Charlotte felt whole again. By morning, the storm had passed. The Whitmore estate shimmered beneath a pale sunrise, its gardens glistening with dew. Charlotte rolled through the grand entrance, her hand steady on the wheels, past portraits of unsmiling ancestors. Her father's study door stood open. He didn't look up when she entered. "Enjoy your walk in the rain?" he asked dryly. "I came to talk," she said. "If it's about that mechanic again," he said without looking up, "don't waste your breath." She met his gaze evenly. "Jake Turner is the man I love." William's mouth tightened. "A man with no class, no ambition." "That's not love, that's rebellion." "No," she said, her voice sharp but calm. "It's the first time I've felt seen, heard, respected. Things I haven't felt here in years." He stood, towering over her, trying to reclaim authority through sheer presence. "Everything you have, at your name, your comfort, exists because of me. I built this legacy with sacrifice. I won't let you throw it away for someone beneath us." Charlotte's hands didn't shake. "Then maybe I don't want this legacy," she said. "Not if it means giving up who I am. Not if it means living a life built on fear and control." For the first time, William's composure cracked. "You turn your back on your family?" "I'm not turning my back," she said softly. "I'm finally facing forward." She turned her chair toward the door. Her father said nothing. The silence that followed wasn't victory, but freedom, and for Charlotte Whitmore that was enough. Outside, the morning light spilled across the marble steps, and waiting at the bottom was Jake. Leaning against his truck, eyes lifting when he saw her. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel trapped between two worlds. She felt whole, and finally home. He looked at her, stunned. "You'd really leave the company?" he asked. Charlotte nodded slowly but surely. "Yes. If you can't accept Jake, I'll walk away from Whitmore Properties. I won't let you control my life anymore." The room fell into a heavy stillness. A door creaked open behind them, and Jake appeared in the doorway. His hands were clean, shirt pressed, but the unease in his eyes betrayed his nerves. He stepped in slowly, his voice calm but determined. "Mr. Whitmore," he said, nodding with respect. William's expression hardened with disdain. "You've got nerve." Jake held his gaze and nodded again. "Yes, sir. I do." He walked forward, coming to stand beside Charlotte, and dipped his head slightly in a respectful bow. "I'm not here to ask for your blessing," he began. "I know you don't think I'm good enough for her. Maybe in your world I never will be. I don't come from wealth. I work late nights fixing cars, and my hands are rarely clean. But I love your daughter with every piece of me." His eyes turned to Charlotte, full of tenderness. "I don't care about her name or her inheritance. I just want to be by her side and give her a life where she never has to feel small again." Tears welled up in Charlotte's eyes. Jake turned back to William. "You can look into my past, threaten my job, even follow me around, but I won't be scared off. I'm not leaving her." William's expression darkened. "You think that's courage?" Jake held his gaze. "No, that's love." A heavy silence followed, full of tension, pride, and something neither man said aloud. Charlotte reached for Jake's hand. "You once told me to find someone who would fight for me." He just did. William looked between them. His eyes were sharp, unreadable. He didn't give a blessing, didn't even nod. But he turned and walked back behind his desk. It wasn't approval, but somehow it was enough. Jake's grip on her hand trembled slightly, a quiet release of tension. As they stepped out of the study together, Charlotte whispered, "You were perfect." Jake gave a small, crooked smile. I was terrified. She leaned in, full of pride. I've never been prouder of anything in my life. And for the first time since her mother had died, Charlotte felt truly free. Not because she had chosen love, but because she had finally chosen herself. 6 months later, the backyard behind Jake's garage looked nothing like it once did. Where junk and old tools used to lie scattered, now stood folding chairs draped with soft fabric, strings of fairy lights, and wildflowers blooming in mason jars. A makeshift altar made of salvaged wood and polished metal stood at the front. Jake had built it with his own hands. It wasn't grand. It wasn't flawless. But it was theirs. The guests were an unlikely gathering. Mechanics in rolled-up sleeves, friends from Charlotte's childhood, a few college classmates, and even several sharply dressed professionals from Whitmore's offices. But all eyes were fixed on just two people. Jake stood at the altar, fidgeting slightly, dressed in a dark vest over a white shirt. His tie was a bit crooked, just the way Charlotte always teased him about. And then the music began. Charlotte appeared, emerging slowly from behind the garage. She wasn't being pushed in a chair or helped down the aisle. She moved forward with the aid of a silver frame walker, each step careful and intentional. Her satin gown shimmered in the sunlight, simple and elegant. Her hair was softly braided, curls framing her face, which glowed with quiet joy. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Charlotte took one step, then another. Slow, steady, determined. She walked to him. By herself, Jake's eyes filled with tears. When she finally reached him, he took her hand like it was the most precious thing he'd ever held. "You walked to me," he whispered. "I told you I would," she replied, smiling through her tears. Standing under the soft light and surrounded by people who had doubted, dismissed, or even disapproved, they made their vows. Simple, honest, beautiful. Charlotte promised laughter and true partnership. Even on the hard days when healing felt like a weight she couldn't carry, Jake promised to be her shelter, her patience, her constant, never letting go no matter how heavy life became. "I didn't fix your car," he said, voice breaking with emotion, "but I swear I'll keep holding the pieces of your heart even when they feel broken." Their kiss wasn't met with polite applause. It was celebrated, with cheers, whistles, and open tears from almost everyone present. As music played again and guests began drifting toward the food tables, one man remained still. William Whitmore stood off to the side, alone, his suit perfect, his expression unreadable. Jake noticed him and approached carefully, unsure of what to expect. William didn't say much. He looked at Charlotte for a long moment, then met Jake's eyes. With a firm hand on Jake's shoulder, he said quietly, "Take care of her." "That's all?" Jake nodded. "I will, always." It wasn't affection. It wasn't a welcome into the family, but it was something. And for now, that was enough. Later that night, long after the celebration had ended and the leftover cake was packed up, Charlotte and Jake stood by the ocean. They had driven there alone, just the two of them. The sun was sinking beneath the horizon, casting a golden glow over the waves. The stars were beginning to appear. Standing on the wooden boardwalk, Charlotte held Jake's hand tightly. "Are you sure?" he asked her softly. She nodded. "I've waited 3 years for this." He helped her step down onto the beach. Her bare feet touched the cool, soft sand. She gasped, eyes wide. "Just a little." "It's real," she whispered. Jake smiled at her. "You're standing. First time since—" "I know," she said, tears spilling over. Hand in hand, they walked toward the water, barefoot, their hearts full. The ocean breeze kissed their skin, wrapping around them like a silent blessing. Charlotte looked out at the horizon, then back at him. "This," she said quietly, "is better than any ballroom or private island." Jake leaned in, whispered in her ear, "One step at a time." "I've got you," she smiled. And they stood there, feet in the sand, wrapped in the peace they had fought for. Because no matter what came next, they would face it together. Thank you for witnessing this journey of healing, of resilience, and of love that looks beyond appearances. Jake and Charlotte's story is a reminder that sometimes the wrong table leads us to the right person, and that true love is rooted not in perfection, but in kindness, patience, and unwavering belief. If their story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs a little hope, because in the end, love isn't about grand gestures or perfect endings. It's about choosing each other again and again, with gentle hearts and open hands, because kindness is the most beautiful love story of all.